When she saw the hunters, she gave a little wave and said, "Did you enjoy the harvest?" Both men froze. The smell of wet soil filled the air again, and for the rest of that day, neither of them spoke another word. Years ago, long before people began to whisper her name in fear, Madame Koi was just a poor housewife named Koifela, living quietly with her husband, Rotimi, and their only daughter, Chizaram, in a small mud house near the end of the village road. Life wasn't kind to her. Rotimi was a struggling palm wine tapper who could barely make enough to feed them. But despite their poverty, they laughed often and dreamt of better days. Chizaram, a bright little girl with dimples and curious eyes, was the joy of their lives. But one rainy afternoon, while tapping wine, Rotimi slipped from the palm tree and fell. He never got up again. From that day, Koifela's laughter vanished. She sold the few things they owned to survive: a broken radio, Rotimi's old cutlass, even her wedding wrapper. When the money finished, she began to sell bananas by the roadside. She would sit under the scorching sun from morning till night, yet nobody ever stopped to buy. Her bananas were always smaller, duller, and less sweet than the rest. Days passed into weeks, weeks into months. Koifela and her daughter began to starve. Sometimes Chizaram went to bed crying for food while her mother sat outside, whispering prayers that no one seemed to hear. One fateful night, when the moon hid behind thick clouds and the whole village was silent, Koifela sat outside her hut again, head bowed, whispering, "God, even if it's one customer, just one, help me." But the voice that answered wasn't God's. A cold wind blew, and a dark figure emerged, tall, thin, and wrapped in shadows. Its eyes glowed faintly red like dying embers. Koifela froze, her breath trembling. Who are you?" she stammered. The figure smiled, though its mouth didn't move. "A helper," it whispered. "You want wealth? You want people to buy your bananas? I can make you rich beyond your dreams." Koifela's fear slowly turned to desperate hope. "Rich?" she asked softly. "You can make me rich?" The voice chuckled. "Yes, I can fill your baskets, build you a shop, clothe you in fine wrappers. But every sweetness has a price." Koifela blinked. "What? What price?" The figure's shadow stretched across the ground and touched her bare feet. "Your daughter," it hissed. "Offer me her soul, and I will give you a life king's envy." Koifela gasped and shook her head violently. "No, never. She's all I have." But the figure smiled again slowly. "Think well, woman. She sleeps hungry every night. You cry every day. Let her go once, and you'll never cry again." Then, as if painting pictures in her mind, Koifela began to see visions herself, wearing glittering wrappers, gold earrings, baskets overflowing with shining bananas. People crowding her stall, calling, "Mama Koi, give me 2 bunches." Tears rolled down her cheeks. Her heart thumped. Temptation clawed at her soul. At last, she whispered, "If I agree, will she suffer?" "No," said the figure. "She will go quickly. You'll be the only one left to mourn." Koifela closed her eyes, trembling. And that night, she whispered, "Yes." The next morning, Chizaram went to play with her friends. Koifela sat at her stall, her heart heavy but strangely calm. Not long after, screams filled the air. A tricycle had lost control by the bend and ran into a small group of children. When Koi reached the scene, she saw Chizaram's lifeless body lying by the gutter, blood trickling from her nose. She wailed and fell beside her daughter, shaking her body and crying like a mad woman. The villagers gathered, holding her shoulders as she screamed. Everyone pitied her. No one suspected anything. They all said it was an accident. Chizaram was buried 2 days later. Koifela fainted twice during the funeral, but the figure's words kept echoing in her head. You'll never cry again. And true to its promise, a few months later, Koifela's life changed. One night, the same figure appeared again in her dream. It pointed toward the forbidden forest. Go before sunrise, it whispered. Walk until you smell ripe bananas. There, you will find your wealth. When Koifela woke, she thought it was madness, but before dawn, she went. Deep inside the forest, she found a clearing she'd never seen before. The air there was thick, the ground moist, and at the center stood a cluster of strange banana trees, their stems black like charcoal, their fruits golden even before ripening. When she reached out to touch one, a whisper filled her ears. Take them. They are yours now. From that morning, her baskets were never empty again. That was how she became Madame Koi, the woman whose bananas glowed like sunlight, whose stall drew crowds every day. But wealth born from darkness never lasts. One bright market day,